Hey, check it out. I found a use for the crockpot. Yeah, it's a pretty fancy tail wheel stand, huh? Hey, welcome back to the shop. It's really good to see you here again. Hi, my name is Dan. Welcome to my shop, and today in the shop here we've got a super decathlon. This is one project I've kind of had hanging up in the rafters now for quite a while. It's an ARF, so it's pretty well almost done as far as that goes, and then as far as the further assembly such as the radio system and the engine and everything else, I'm pretty much just about there. But there's a couple things that we need to do to get it ready. One of them is I want to test run this engine. But before I can test run this engine on the platform the way it is, I need to make sure that the fuel tank is set up correctly. And there's some things that I kind of wanted to introduce to you as far as working with fuel tanks. Gasoline fuel tanks are a little bit different than glow fuel tanks. And so I'm going to go over the differences in those. And that's about it. But this is really cool. Look at this. This is an ARF, like I said. Obviously of China descent, because the instructions come on a little CD-ROM about that big, and it's just mostly a lot of pictures and a lot of really strange sentences. They're missing something. They're missing like verbs, and sometimes it refers to things in multiple plural sense instead of single sense, and I don't know, they're just fun. But that's part of, when you've been around airplanes for a while, you pretty much know what needs to be done. I mean, they didn't put a whole lot of detail in there about how to put the servo system in there and the way everything goes. And there are parts in this plane, I don't know what they're for. There's some tubes that are running out of the firewall and go about halfway back in, like you would run a cable in it. And I don't know what you would have underneath your cowl that you'd want to have the cable in it. And I certainly don't think that you would mount the servo to maybe run the... No, they can't. I mean, the servo to run like the tail feathers or anything, because there's servo mounts back there, so they're all the way back. I don't know what it's about, so it's kind of a mystery, but I can still make it a flyable plane. There's going to be some other things that I'm going to be doing some figuring out on as well. This is the struts that go on the wings. They attach right down here, right around where the landing gear is, and they go out where, if the wing was here, they attach to it out on the end. And then there's a couple of other smaller ones, so it looks very scale and everything. I might have to redesign it because I think it's going to be a little bit too, I don't know, it's going to be a little bit too flimsy. The other thing is these are made out of metal, which is kind of strange. Most of the struts I've ever installed on airplanes were like a hardwood piece that was shaped to be the perfect size. Yeah, I don't know. I just have a feeling if these run into some kind of torque, they're going to bend and they're not going to go back. So, still working on my feelings for that part. But anyways, oh, let me show you this too. This is really cool. Okay, so when it comes to putting the wings onto the airplane at the field and so forth, you got to slide them in. This is a carbon fiber rod that's going to ride right in the middle of the wings. But when it comes to actually, then the struts got to go in there. So how do you get to it? This plate here is a window. Let me see if I got that. Yeah, I do. This is a window that's going to be sealed up, and it's going to be screwed down. And you can see down into here, but you need to be able to access when you put the strut in there, you need to be able to put a screw into it that screws it right into the airframe. So how do you do it? Well, that's good question. Ready? Here comes the answer. Watch this. Look at that. Pretty cool. Magnets. Magnets are the future, I swear. So anyways, there's a set of magnets up here and also here. And then the front end kind of locks into the tabs with these, locks these tabs into some slots on the firewall here. So pretty cool design. I mean, it makes it so that I could easily set up my fuel tank in here. Usually fuel tanks are a little bit of a struggle on models because, well, it's kind of like on the Rebel. You got just a box and you don't have full access to it. Well, this one I have access from the top and the sides. It's going to make it really easy. But This will make it easy so you can check to see if there's any kind of problems like kinking of the fuel hoses or the vent hose that's going to mess you up when you go to enter fuel in there. You can also make sure that it's going to be secured down and everything. I just like this design. I kind of hope that, you know, in the future maybe I can make some of my other aircraft that I'm building from scratch more accessible like this. Very good design. So anyways, let's get to work on that fuel tank. Well, where do we start? Okay, we got a tank here ready to go, kinda. And if you've had any experience with glow tanks, you're probably used to the materials that are in them. They're slightly different when you go to gas. And so, for instance, let's talk about this piece right here. This is the stopper that goes on the end of the tank. And what happens is this, in order for this to be gasoline proof, it needs to go to rubber. So this is a special brown rubber one that's made for gas. If you use the ones that come in the tanks that are prepared for the glow fuel, it's more of a, I don't know, it's a softer rubber foam thing. All I know is it is not capable of handling gas. It'll eventually totally erode it and decay it, and then your tank will have, it'll get into the fuel system, probably your engine too. So don't use that. You definitely want to go out and find these rubber stoppers that are made and say specifically for gasoline use on them. The tubing is very much the same as it is on a glow system. This is brass tubing and it works fine. The plastic stopper that's at the back, that you attach the front plate to the back plate, that kind of squishes this all up and makes it seal against the edges of this, is exactly the same. The only other really big difference is the draw tube itself. Now this is something that I've found. This is new. Let me explain something here for a second. This is Tygon. This is what you use when you're using a gasoline airplane, because this tube is gasoline proof. So this is meant to travel gas through it. The other thing, this is silicone. This is used on glow. So don't use silicone on your gas airplane, because it will eat this. But this is Tygon. It is kind of a clear yellow. It's really nice because you can see like if fuel is moving through it very easily. You could also see if it's got air bubbles in there. So if you got a tank problem or something like that, it's easier to diagnose just by looking at it. It's great stuff. The one part that it is weak is using it within the tank to secure the clunk. For some reason, Tygon, when it is fully immersed in gasoline, will actually kind of spread open. It'll swell. And so if it's on a tube like this one here, fits on there like that, what'll happen is it'll swell to the point where inside the tank it'll just pop right off while you're in flight. And if that happens, suddenly your draw tube is going to be able to pull in air from, you know, changes in AOA on the airplane. So this stuff does not work inside the tank. So that's when I saw this. This is something I'm going to try. This is called Proflex. Comes from Sullivan, which is a great company as far as making fuel tanks and linkages. They also have a complete line of hardware and things like that. Sullivan's a good company. I'll put a link for this stuff in the description down below if you're interested in trying it. But this is supposed to be a impervious and stays flexible forever type of tubing, which is exactly what we need as far as for the job of the clunk pickup. You need this to be able to be sitting in the bottom of the tank and picking up fuel from the lowest point available. So as the tank gets lower and lower, it is right there with it. So anyways, I put that onto the clunk and onto the load up part there, the pickup line. This is the old piece that I had in there. It was a piece of Tygon and it kept popping off. It got to a point where I had to put like these clamps. You have to do some kind of clamping or something to get it to stick to this tubing so that when it does swell up, it won't just fall off. And it got to be a pain in the butt. So when I saw this, I thought, yeah, what the heck, I'll give it a try. So we're going to go ahead and put that back into the tank now. This is the vent line. It needs to be facing up. So we'll go ahead and just stick that in there like so. And then we'll take the Allen wrench and go ahead and close it up. until it gets a nice hard seal. What it's doing is it's pulling the little piece of plastic that was on the back end of this, on the stopper, into the stopper, so it's squishing it up, and it's forming a nice seal around here so air cannot get in and out or fuel not leak out and so forth. And that's pretty much it. Another big difference on the glow tank compared to a gasoline tank is this will just go to an outside vent. So in other words, it's not going to go to any kind of a pressure pickup. On glow engines, what you'll find is that a lot of the time you'll be hooking the vent line up to the pressure nipple that is located behind the baffles on a muffler from the engine. And the idea behind that, let's step back even further. The cool part about gas engines is there's a pump that's right here in the carburetor. And so when we put the tank in there, the positioning of the tank is not as important as it is with a glow system, because the pump will be strong enough to pull the fuel from wherever it is pretty much in the airplane. We always try to put it up in an area where it's not going to affect the CG as the fuel is burned off, but it's not totally important exactly where that tank is with a gas engine. With a glow engine, there is a pressure nipple that is on the muffler that blows pressure into the tank and helps kind of keep the tank at a neutral or maybe a slightly positive pressure situation to blow the fuel into the needle valve on the engine, into the carburetor where it'll atomize. If you put the tank too low, sometimes it will pull the fuel back out of the needle and the engine will die. Or if you put it up too high, it'll continue to siphon, and so your fuel tank will continue to leak fuel into the carburetor even while it's sitting idle. All kinds of little problems that can happen with a glow system, but with the that's one of the reasons I really like the gasoline system, is because it's pretty much self-sufficient as far as gas supply getting to the carburetor. You don't have to worry about it as far as what position the tank is inside the engine. It's got a straight-on vent, which means it's just pulling air from the outside to replace what that pump is sucking out, so it doesn't make the tank into a negative pressure state. That's about it. Yeah, that is about it. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and strap this guy in here, run the fuel lines to the engine and also to the vent line so it's ready to go. And I'll be one step closer once I get the throttle hooked up so that I could do an engine test and make sure that this engine is going to work well on this airplane. And then we can start putting the final cuts into the cowl to make the engine fit the cowl and cover it all up nicely. That's coming up. Well, that's about it for today. I'm going to get out of this shop because it's starting to get really hot out here, but we'll get this put into the airplane and get that engine ready to run, and then start attacking the other things that I got to get done on this plane. I really want to get this one in the air soon, so we've got to get to work on it. But if you enjoyed today's content, please give me a like, and have a great day. Hope you get to building something cool.